Hello and welcome to our webinar session on our New York trip for 2024. We have done this trip before in 2017 and 2019. Obviously, it stopped because of COVID, and now we're looking to restart this. So tonight, we'll provide information to families on this wonderful trip. My name is Brendan Watson. I'm the principal, and with me is Gabby DeMoro, who will be one of the teachers going on the trip and helping organise and lead this experience for our students. This trip will be open to Year 11 and 12 in 2024. So students who are currently in Year 10 and Year 11. So as I said, we've done this twice before, and it's a very exciting trip. Those who have been in the past have given us great feedback and said it's a really memorable experience of their time in secondary school. The original concept, and it still remains today, is for students to complete a unit of study or part of their study while in New York. So we specifically target those students who will be in a visual arts subject. So the visual arts, the performing arts, geography. Unit 2 of geography is on tourism. So this is an ideal location to complete Unit 2. Business studies, particularly business management and economics. Our food studies groups, so that's baking, hospitality, those doing hospitality in manor or quatrefoils, and any students doing food technology. Horticulture and the VCE vocational major, which was called VCAL previously, but it's changed a bit. And students will complete work while on tour. Now, the tour itself, every student travels as a group there and a group back, but we individualize the tours based on the subject groups. So, for instance, the visual arts group will remain as a group staying in the same hostel with everyone, but during the day, they will be doing visual arts activities, going to different exhibitions, say at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and having a tour there. They might be going to the Morgan Library to look at illuminated manuscripts and so on and so forth. While the performing arts students would be doing classes on Broadway. So they do an improv and a script writing class on Broadway. They actually do a fight class, so learn how to fight without punching, but on stage fighting, and all sorts of things. So the tours within the context of the subject areas are tailored to that group of subjects, but everyone also has a set of experiences that are core. So the usual tourist attractions that we all go to, and at night we're all together. And we all go out and do different things as a group. And we'll explain some of that as we go through this evening. So if you're looking at going and you're in Year 10, they're the subjects to choose and to sign up for. So the departing dates, we're looking at departing on the 28th of March next year and arriving back in Melbourne on the 6th of April, giving us about 10 days in New York. At the moment, the airfares are being costed at around $3,000. That's the cheapest we can get them at the moment. So as a result, the price would be $5,000. And we'll run through everything that includes. If those flight prices come down, and they may before we are due to book them, then we'd adjust that price down. So what does it include? Well, it does include airfares, accommodation, entry fees to all the main attractions, such as the Empire State Building.
We look also at the Natural History Museum, Top of the Rocks observation deck, and we also access a ferry, which takes us to the Statue of Liberty. And within that, we also cover the 9/11 Memorial Tour as well.
We have accommodation together, and I'll talk a bit more about the accommodation, but there's also lots of things to see in New York. So we go and walk the High Line, which is a reclaimed parkway, Little Island, the Chelsea markets. We go down and we're in the Brooklyn Bridge there. So we catch a train to Brooklyn and we walk back across into Lower Manhattan, which you can see in the picture there, the black and white picture. You'll see the New York Library, Strawberry Fields. Now, for those who don't know what Strawberry Fields is, it's dedicated to John Lennon, one of the Beatles, who was shot just over the road from there, sadly. And we go to many iconic locations used in movies. We also have a dinner at the Starlight Diner, where all of the wait staff are waiting on tables because they are usually on Broadway, but they don't have a gig at the moment, so they sing, they dance. Last time we were there, the whole of Les Mis was sung at one stage. We go and see a Broadway show, and at the moment we know that the Back to the Future, the musical based on the movie, is coming out the middle of this year. If that was successful, then we may well go and see that next year. We also all get a 7-day subway ticket. We go to the United Nations for a tour, and it also includes all the transfers to and from the airport by bus. So there is a lot included in that. Now, I might add that the Q&A section is open. So if anyone wanted to post a question as we go through, we'll try and answer those. Some of it we will answer as a part of this presentation. So you'll be wandering the streets as a small group with a staff member, and that staff member will be a subject-specific staff member who will be supporting students as they go on their small group activities during the day. But at night, we all come back together. And when we walk to, say, across the Brooklyn Bridge, we'll be doing that as a group as well. You'll see iconic places like the Empire State Building. And in fact, we go here twice. We go in the morning early because the queues can get up to 3 or 4 hours if you're not there early. And then we go back in the evening so you can see the lights of New York. So we do it twice in one day. There are some optional extras. So of an evening, if students wanted to go to Madame Tussauds, we pre-book tickets to that. We do a night of ice skating at the Rockefeller Center, which is reasonably priced and a lot of fun. If you're not in the visual arts group and you wanted to see some of the extra, galleries that might not be on your tour group, then we make sure that you can get to them. And last time we went, there was a Washington, D.C. tour right at the end on the last day before departure. That means that we get on a train at Penn Station, train a couple of hours down to DC, and then get on the red trolley car that goes around all of the various tourist destinations. We spend a full day there and into the evening, coming back at night, staying at the hostel, and then the next afternoon we depart. And so that's an optional extra. For those who don't go on that, then we run just a walking tour and shopping day in New York, back in New York, for those who want to be part of that. Now, I might talk about food. So breakfast is included each day. It's lunch at your own expense, and that can be as reasonably priced or as expensive as students like. There are 2 dinners included. So we have, particularly at the Starlight Diner, we have that one and another one that we do. But with regards to the arrangements for dinner, so lunch, first of all, lunch is in your study group because you'll be out and about with them. So as a group, you choose somewhere where you'd like to go. And sometimes it might be a 99-cent slice of pizza, which is a giant slice of pizza. And other times you might get a sandwich or try something else. Dinner arrangements, we tend to have the whole group to take them somewhere. So on one of the first nights, we go to a place called Whole Foods, where there's it's a sort of help yourself to, there's hot and cold food, salads, soups, all sorts of things. Students can make up a parcel that's in weight, and it's costed by the weight. So that's where we go, sort of one of the first nights. We do the diner, as I said, we go to a traditional diner, but the difference there is that the wait staff are singing as they serve you. And we also allow students right at the very end to plan through their trip a final night dinner, where they, as a group of at least 4, with parent permission, we allow them to go in a radius that we have supervised and say this is where they can go. They can go by taxi or walking. They have to meet certain safety requirements along the way, but as a small group, they get to plan a dinner as a small group and go out for that night as a small group without a staff member, but they're checking in 5 times during the night with their nominated staff member that has been working with them. And they have to actually use like a WhatsApp to take a photo of themselves, the cab they're getting in, take a photo of also the restaurant they're in, and we have all the contact details and things like that. So that's the final night, sort of last night dinner before we go to Washington. And it's something we build up to so students can get to know the city, how it operates, and know the area that we're allowing them to choose a restaurant in so that they can do a bit of research on that. Accommodation, we stay in a hostel in the Upper West Side, just off Central Park. Students would be in a 2, 3, 4 bedroom with a shared bathroom. As I said, there's a daily program that's run through for students, and that's based on their subject areas. So each study group has their own program, and some activities would during the day might cross over. So, for instance, the Statue of Liberty tour, we all go together. The High Line activity, where you walk what's been a reclaimed railway line, has been turned into a park and sort of snakes through parts of New York. That High Line, in the past, we've had 2 or 3 groups out of the 6 go together at once. And then evenings, we come back together. One of the evenings, we do an award ceremony, and that's where we have pizza and a bit of an award ceremony where everyone gets a miniature Statue of Liberty as an award and a certificate for something they've done during the time together. And that's that special gathering before we leave for our flight home as well, that we give those awards. We always get asked about safety in New York, and I have to say you'll see more police in New York than you ever would in Melbourne. I've felt safer in New York the times that I've been than I have at times in Melbourne, sadly. Having said that, it is a very busy city. It's a huge metropolis, and it's a very fast city. We do talk to students before we go about being aware of scammers and pickpockets, because you have to be conscious of your own traveling safety when in New York. We do have travel insurance that's also included in the price for this trip. So travel insurance is absolute requirement, because if a student needs to see a doctor in the United States, then it can be very, very expensive. We haven't really had too many issues in the past, which is good. Those on an Australian passport, there's a visa waiver scheme, the ESTA, which can students apply for online, and that's at your own expense. If you have another passport, then we need to make sure that you can return to Australia, that you have a return visa if you're traveling on another passport. So be aware that if you don't have a passport that has at least a year on it, it's at the time of departure, that can be a problem. So, and if you haven't got a passport, then there has been quite a delay in getting passports. So it's if you do decide to go, then it's probably best to start that process this year so that you have a passport ready to go for next year, and it's well and truly organised ahead of time. There have been instances of passports taking 3 to 4 months to be processed by the government department that looks after passports.
With ESTA visa waivers as well, from memory, that cost converted to Australian dollars is around $30, and it's all done online, which is quite a very simple and easy process as well. But if you do find that you need some help with that, obviously you can contact us and we can walk you through that process too.
Now there's a question here. Is the trip open to current year 12s? No, because they won't be students at the time. It's a student trip. It is running next year. It's not running this year. And there's some questions about the subjects. It is pretty subject specific. We can look at other options, but you would have to join one of the subject groups. And that could be the geography group, because you can do the unit 2 of geography while in New York in the time that you're there. So get an extra unit of VCE, which is one of the reasons we included geography in it. Now, how many students normally attend is another question. The last time we went, we had about 40 students. The time before that, we had 60 students. So it is a sizable group, and it depends how many students obviously can afford it and choose to go. In the visual arts group, which I took last time, there was 8 or 9 students in that group, whereas one of the other groups, particularly the food group, was much bigger. So it depends on how many students are wanting to take up the option, and it does help with those subjects that we spoke about earlier. Can you go if you're finishing business management this year? Yes, we can probably extend it. Spending money is one of the questions that we always get asked for or about. And so spending money, there's an additional 3-way subway ticket if it's needed. So you get a 7-day subway ticket, but we're in city, so on the ground for 10 days. So you may need to buy day by day a subway ticket. Now, I say may because it depends what each group is doing. Some groups may need it. Other groups will not, because they'll be around the hostel area and doing activities that aren't that far. We try and schedule it so that the further away activities we do earlier on, so that we can walk to some of the other activities later in the trip. You do need to buy lunch each day, snack money, and souvenirs and gifts for family. You will receive some things, though, going on this trip. You'll get a wheelie bag for your luggage. So we all get a big 65, 70 litre, I think it is, equivalent luggage roller bag that's coloured and easy for us to spot. You provide your own unique tag for that, or ribbon or something, so you can identify it's yours. When we go, it is fairly, Easter is early, and we will be away for Easter. Please note that. We will go to Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York for Easter Sunday. The Cardinal, who's also the Archbishop for New York, celebrates Mass there. The Mass is on at 10:30. It is webcast, so you can tune in and see us and watch Mass and probably see us there, because they usually show the congregation. And that's the Mass where they have a beautiful choir that sings. So you can tune into Mass and see us when it's webcast, when we're there. So because they're coming out of winter, the weather is going to be cold. The first year that we went in 2017, we experienced snow in the first couple of days. So it was bitterly cold. The jacket we provide is a windproof jacket. It has some branding on it. They're all the same color, and they have a fleece, a polar fleece, and they're actually a waterproof jacket. You also get a day pack with that can be your carry-on luggage. So you get 2 bags and a very, very good jacket, because that you will need it if it's going to be cold there. They've had a really, really cold winter this year, and quite a few cold snaps. We never know what it's going to be in a year ahead, but we prepare for a very cold environment. That means that we had days of, in Celsius, 0 degrees to 10 degrees when we were there. So from 0 to 10 degrees during the day. The first time we went there. The second time was much milder, and it was hovering around 12 to 13 degrees. Sometimes we got a day of 15 or 16. It is the early spring that would be going. So the winter, if it is a late winter, would still be breaking, and every chance of getting snow. So we prepare for that, and we continue with the program regardless. It's a vibrant city. You're going to see places like the United Nations, iconic places like going through and walking around Wall Street, where the stock exchange is. And if you're doing the economics, if you're in economics, then you would go to the money museum, which tells the history of money, and particularly the US dollar. And that final picture there is Times Square. And that is a big, bustling, bright place where you probably know at New Year's Eve, that's where the ball drops for the new year in New York, in Times Square. And it's iconic. It is a huge area for theatres. And as I said, we'd be going to a Broadway show when there. Now, we are travelling together. And when we travel together, the school rules still apply, and we're staying in a hostel. So consideration for other people is important, and sleep is of the utmost important. They say it's the city that doesn't sleep, but we have to sleep. And so in order to keep going and to keep healthy on a trip like this, you have to get a good night's sleep. And the most important thing is trust. We have to be able to trust the students, and that means that they need to stay with the group and follow instructions, working together. And as long as we all do that, then it's a really enjoyable trip. I know there's a mobile phone question. I'm going to get to that in a minute. So is there any free time? There are short stints of free time, yes. But when students have free time, we give them a 2-block boundary, and they have to let us know where they're going. And mobile phones, yes, we prefer they do take mobile phones on this. And the way we operate it is we have their teacher that's the tour leader for their subject group will have a mobile phone. They will have a local SIM card or an eSIM that's local, and we encourage students to do the same so that we can communicate. They communicate via the WhatsApp group, so that there's no one-to-one communication for child safety purposes, but that everyone can see in that group their chat. There is also a larger group, and there's a staff group. So if they need to contact a staff member that's not their own staff member, but maybe ask someone else a question, they can do that via the staff group chat. And the benefit of having a local SIM or an eSIM from, say, AT&T is that then most of the SIMs come with a data plan or unlimited data. And that's good for using your map app on your phone as you're going around, and also for checking train times on the subway. So yes, we do encourage students, in fact, unusually, to bring a phone. It also means that we have to be able to trust them, that they're not going to be on them all night. Now, if we notice that students aren't coping with that, obviously we have to step in. And if parents think, well, that's not going to work for my child, there's a conversation that we have beforehand, and you let us know, and we can look after the phones at night. But we do actually want students to have a mobile phone. We prefer that when we're overseas in New York. Medical conditions and allergies. It's important, obviously, that we know all those medical conditions and allergies, and prior to the trip, we'd be working through that. Staff are first aid trained, and as I said, we do have medical insurance, and we use an international doctor and international hospital in New York. We have had to use them before, but it wasn't for anything serious. It was actually for constipation. So and that also highlights the need to be eating well and healthy when in country. I've covered what the weather will be like, and will we gather beforehand? Yes, we will. There will be a parent information session when we finalise numbers and everyone's paid a deposit and what have you, and we know who's going. And parents can FaceTime, use if they have a local SIM card over there. Absolutely. Now, we also look at a night at Madison Square Garden. not Madison Square Garden, but Madison Square Garden, it should be. In the past, we've gone to basketball. We haven't had any luck in the past getting to a baseball game. But if that was something students want to do, we could look at that. And most people have gone to the basketball game. I think last time we saw the New York Knicks and the Washington Wizards play. And that was a great night for the group. When we have numbers, we can obviously look at what's on in New York at that time, and that gets released a little bit closer to the time. But we can then decide with the students, what would you like to do? Are there other things you'd like to see? And we try and tailor it so that students get a fair say in that. For instance, the Madame Tussauds, those who wanted to go to Madame Tussauds, we ran that across 3 nights. And students could opt to go to the Madame Tussauds Waxworks with a staff member on one of their evenings. Others chose that they wanted to go out for dinner instead. So there's lots of opportunities, but most of the time we're together in the evening, unless there's a sort of a night where different groups want to do different things. Our timeline from here, we will be making available probably tomorrow. We'll set a message everyone and email our Year 10 families a expression of interest form. We are asking for a $1,500 deposit. Now, if you can't quite make $1,500, then talk to us. That's fine, because we do have to put a deposit down for flights just to reserve seats, and a bit later in the year, we find out what the actual fares will be. But we've got a quote at the moment, as I said, about $3,000. The travel agent is hopeful that they will come down. And we have already tentatively booked the hostel, but that's not confirmed because we haven't made a deposit on that. So we do have to make sure we have accommodation, and that's YMCA is where we're staying. And yes, it's the one from the song. So you'll be staying in the YMCA on the Upper West Side. And then there's a payment plan there. With term 1 in 2024, a final meeting, distribute the kit of bag and all of those sorts of things. And if there's any optional extras that students particularly wanted to do, like the Washington, D.C. tour, that's when those payments are due as well. We then fly out as a group and return as a group. We do return during the holidays to give students time to get back into the time zone. Going over to the United States is pretty good. It's likely, well, at the moment, the airfares we have with Air New Zealand, they've been the best quote at the moment. So traveling Melbourne, Auckland to Los Angeles to JFK in New York City. And that's a long trip. Just the Melbourne to LA is about 14 hours. And so then there's another 6 hours on top of that, 4 to 6 hours getting from one side of the country to the other to get to New York. So by the time you arrive in LA, you usually arrive in LA before you've left, because we're crossing the international date line. So you arrive before you've left, and then you go through to New York. The stopovers are anywhere between an hour to 2 hours. They're not long, so we're not staying overnight. We're pretty much getting there as quickly as we can, and flying at the moment. The plan is Air New Zealand, unless we get a cheaper price. And we know that airlines are starting to reduce their international airfares at the moment and releasing them for next year's travel period, and hopefully they'll be more affordable than they have been this year. No, that question's gone. So that's our plan from here. If there's any other questions, I'm going to wait a moment and let you put them up in the Q&A. I think we've answered all the ones so far. And this is meant to go for half an hour, a quick introduction. So we're right on half an hour now. If there's anything else, please post it. Otherwise, look out for the expression of interest form, which we'll be sending around to everyone. And hopefully you will decide that you want to come to New York and have the experience of a lifetime, an adventure. Right, no more questions at the moment. Have a chat in your family, and if there is anything else that you'd like to know, please let us know. Well, when do we have to have the form in? By the end of this term. That's a good question. Thank you for asking that. So by the end of this term. That's about 5 weeks away, 4 or 5 weeks away. All right, well, thank you everyone for your attendance. And if there are any more questions, please give us a ring at the college over the next few days if you've got any more questions or you'd like to discuss anything to do with this. And we look forward to receiving those applications. Thanks again and good night.
Thanks, everyone.